Gators, and sports fans. Get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We got a good show lined up for you today. We're going to be joined here shortly by Jeff Cardozo, a man of many jobs. And then in the second portion of the show, we'll be joined by our good buddy Brent Beaird from over in Jacksonville talking college football. But first, let's go to the Titan Tomorrow hotline. We're joined by number 41, right? Jeff Cardozo.
Number 41. Nobody uses it anymore, so maybe they retired it, or it was just so bad that nobody wants to be cursed by it.
Well, I got to ask you, was that a number you grew up wearing, or is it when you came to Florida, they're like, here, dude, you got to wear number 41?
Yeah, that's kind of the way it went, but it actually worked out okay because my high school number was 5. So then I always say, they gave it to me because 4 plus 1 is 5, and I couldn't get 5 because I was reserved for like the stud infielders and not some skinny, dorky, redheaded pitcher.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, Jeff, a lot of people, obviously the Gator Nation knows what you do for the Gator Radio Network, but I want to go back to your days growing up in South Florida. Obviously a baseball player down there. Did you play any other sports down in South Florida?
Yeah, I did. I really played everything. And I think, that's what even, I'm sure you encourage Luke to do it. And, I encourage my son Austin to do it now. I just think it helped with a lot of different things. So, back then travel ball wasn't the way it was for baseball. So you played football in the fall, you played basketball in the winter, and then you rolled right into baseball. And, I hate to even admit this, but I actually played soccer, even though I don't really enjoy soccer anymore. But, dabbled in golf a little bit and even some tennis and different things. But yeah, it was just one of those where you're always outside, you're always doing different things. And, I gave up basketball my sophomore year of high school and then just did football and baseball. And then obviously too skinny to throw football around. Not as good as you, but the transition into baseball for good.
Well, I was skinny too, my man. Baseball, so when you got time to decide what you want to do in baseball, and if a lot of people don't know, baseball does not give full scholarships, which I cannot figure out why. But what schools were you interested in going to play at? What schools did you visit?
Yeah, it was an interesting journey. I actually got discovered. I didn't throw the hardest. So I was just always had really good control. It was won all conference teams and different things like that. But, I was 6'4", about a $150. So you didn't throw hard, but I was able to get some people out. So just happened to be one day I was pitching against Rick Ankiel, if you remember that name. He pitched in the big leagues and did a lot of different things. So
he couldn't throw a strike.
Yeah, he's the guy that collapsed there against the Braves, which was fun. Yeah. So we're just playing a high school game against him, and of course every scout in the world is there, every college in the world is there to watch Rick, and I end up beating him and had a really good game. And it was then that Gary Henderson, who was a pitching coach at the time for Florida, was there, and there were several other schools, and that sort of got me in a little bit. And then you started getting some letters from different schools, and I looked at actually a couple ACC schools, Duke and Wake Forest and UCF, but my parents were Gators. I'd always come up for homecoming every year, and went to Gator Growl and the parade and a bunch of different things. So inevitably, Florida, they weren't ready to offer a full scholarship or any kind of scholarship, so they got me in as a preferred walk-on. And I came in that first year and did really well. I ended up putting on about 20 pounds that first year of Florida, and then got on partial scholarship, and the rest is history.
We're speaking with Jeff Cardozo right here on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. You can follow Jeff on Twitter at Jeff Cardozo UF. Jeff, so you get here, obviously talk a little bit about your career. You got to go play in the College World Series, which is pretty dang cool, obviously. Yeah. But just talk a little bit briefly about your career here.
Yeah, I think a little surreal, that when I first got to campus, I walked into Gary Henderson's office, again, the pitching coach at the time. And, we had talked and done some different things. He said, let me take you down to the field. And I walked down there, and David Eckstein's playing catch with Tommy Bond. And, he's like, hey, grab a glove. So I'm playing three-way catch now, and standing right next to me is David Eckstein, who, of course, I had looked up to and remembered from the 96 series and all the great things you heard. And so that was neat. And then you walk in and you're next to Brad Wilkerson and Josh Fogg and David Ross, of course, a lot of different things. So I just, you grew up in a hurry. You understand what it took to be successful at this level because of how much those guys cared. And, I think it really made me work. And I owe a lot to David Ross, to be honest with you. And Shane, I think it's a pretty funny story that sort of made me who I was baseball-wise. I was Mr. Class Clown in high school. I always had fun, happy-go-lucky, and it's still my personality today. But I remember down in Miami my freshman year, and I give up a home run. Well, earlier in the game, let me talk about the good part first. I come in, I strike out Pat Burrell, who ended up being the number one pick and for the Hurricanes. I strike him out on an inside fastball. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm cool. I'm great. This is easy. And then 3 innings later, he hits a ball that's still orbiting Earth, and they win the game because of it. So David Ross is catching. He walks out to the mound and he grabs me by the collar right here. And it's probably not on video because that was like the VHS days, so they don't keep those things. But he says, Jeff, if you don't ever figure this thing out, and he used a couple of bad words that we can't use on this, but he says, you're never going to get it. And I didn't really understand what he was talking about. So after the game, I go to his room at the hotel and said, Rossi, what were you talking about? He said, Jeff, you're really, really talented, but you have to turn into somebody different when you step over that white line. I mean, you've got to be, a bad word again. And I really got it. I understood it. And then I finally realized, man, yeah, everybody's good at this level. When you're facing that dude that's 60 feet, 6 inches away, he wants to beat you just as bad as you want to beat him. So mentally, you've got to compete. You've got to turn into that. So I was sort of, then a prick on the other side. But that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to pitch with an edge and be able to do that. So I owe a ton to David Ross, and for the next couple of years, really pitched that way. And, inevitably got to start my sophomore and junior seasons and had a nice little career. But it was the cheating bat era, Shane. It was those guys that were hitting the shortstop for LSU in 1998 hit 44 home runs by himself as a shortstop. So it was the cheat bat. So our records will never be in there, but it was certainly fun and glad to be a part of it.
Yeah. So I know you have a hatred towards the Miami Hurricanes. Is it due to the home run that Pat Burrell hit, or is it just because you grew up down there and you just hated them?
Yeah, I think part of both. That's like that first memory of being on the field with them. But I think there's just a lot of things that I know about that program that they didn't necessarily do the best. And even now going down to broadcast all the times, they treat you like crap. I got into a fight with the official score about 3 or 4 years ago when we were down there because he didn't make the right call. So I go challenge him, and then he tries to say, man, you don't know anything about baseball. What are you talking about? I've been doing this for 20 years. And so we had some fun with it. So it's just, there's a disgust to that program. It's always great to beat him. And that's what Sully has been able to do really ever since he's gotten here. Yeah.
So Jeff, I had Wilkerson on about a week or two ago. Now he's coaching for JU. Do you think he's the greatest baseball player we've ever had at the University of Florida?
I do. Just from everything that he was able to do, and you go back and, that competitive nature. Although, I've told you that story about Eck. The first time I saw Brad, I walk in there and I kind of took a double take. I'm like, really? That's Brad Wilkerson? Kind of this short dude with a little bit of a belly. And, how does he do all that? Yeah, so he just doesn't look athletic or anything. And then you watch him on the field and just the swing, the athleticism, obviously the competitive nature that he had. Heck, you go play him on a golf course, that guy's deadly. Basketball, he's tremendous. He's just one of those guys that really is a natural athlete. And it was really cool to be a part of what he was able to do. And really, Florida State had J.D. Drew at the time. Of course, Miami had Burrell and Michaels and Huff. So you had the 3 Florida schools really, really have these just studs up there. And Brad was certainly a part of that. But, yeah, I think just because of everything that he can do and the way he was able to hit for 8 innings and then come in and close out a game and just have that mentality and be prepared. And again, he didn't throw the hardest, but he competed, knew what he had to do. And he was a special individual for sure.
Talk a little bit about what it was like to go to the College World Series. I mean, I was a baseball player growing up, and I remember I used to love watching all those Texas teams play in the old Rosenblatt Stadium when I was growing up. I can't remember, did y'all play in the old Rosenblatt or the new one?
We did. It was the old one.
Yeah. So
So
just talk about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was special. I mean, obviously, that's what you want to do when you get to college. You've watched it for so long, and I remember watching Florida in the '96 College World Series. So then you finally get to campus, and we get to go in '98, which is my freshman year, and you're thinking, wow, this is easy. This is this great team. You got 6 or 7 big leaguers on this team, and we ended up getting and losing both of the games, and we scored double-digit runs in both games and ended up losing both of them. That's how good the bats were and the things that were happening. But I just remember walking in and you looking around, you see the different color seats, you see the atmosphere, you see everything that's a part of it, and just all of college baseball and everything you've ever strived for, you're getting to now be a part of that moment. And I didn't get an opportunity. I was just in there really quick, pitching wise, because we were only in there for the 2 games. But just to step on that mound, look around, and soak it in, it was certainly special. And then, of course, now I've been able to go so many times as a broadcaster, and that's been neat, Shane, because what Sully has been able to do, we were actually there for the last year of Rosenblatt as a broadcaster, and then that next year we got to welcome in TD Ameritrade. So I got to be there for the end of Rosenblatt, the beginning of the new ballpark, as a broadcaster. So I've gotten to do some pretty cool things from that side.
Speaking of a broadcaster, we've got a Facebook Live question here for you, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Evan wants to know, Jeff, did you always want to be a broadcaster?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to just be in sports in general, from playing all around. In high school, amongst doing all those sports, I was actually the sports editor of my high school paper as well. So, got to dabble into that a little bit. And then, of course, went to Florida and then majored in that as well. And that was a fun time. I got to be around Jeff Chandler, the kicker at Florida at the time, was one of my classmates. Aaron Andrews was there. So we did a lot of different things together, and, had a lot of different people from that era stay in it and be involved with it. So certainly grateful to do that. But yeah, I think once, the baseball days, it was over, and I had a couple of shoulder surgeries, and I don't know if there was anything else I'd rather do to still be around it and be a part of it.
So did you grow up listening, or was there a broadcaster, a baseball guy that you loved? I mean, I'm trying to think. When I grew up, the only thing that was around was WTBS. So you had to watch the Braves in Mississippi.
Sure.
Who did you watch growing up, and was there one broadcaster that you wanted to be like?
Not really anything that I tried to emulate, and I still to this day, you pick up different traits from different guys here and there. But I was the same, growing up just north of West Palm Beach. That's where the Braves spring trained at the time, and the Expos were there at the time. So I remember always going down in my last couple of years of high school, and hopefully my parents won't watch this, because I'd skip some school in the morning. I'd go down and watch those guys pull up in their cars and watch Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine and John Smoltz throw bullpens and be able to do that. And I do remember meeting a couple of guys throughout the spring training circuit. I met Jim Cott at the time when he was doing some Met stuff, and I really admired him. And then I got to meet Don Sutton, who was doing some Brave stuff at the time. And Don Sutton's actually the guy that taught me how to throw my curveball. We're just on the back fields one day, and I'm walking around, and I say, hey, Mr. Sutton, I'm so-and-so, and I play baseball, and, I also like to do what you want to do someday, and from the broadcast side, but do you mind showing me how to throw a curveball? And he looks at my hands, and, I got some pretty big hands, and he says, try to grip it like this. And it ended up being a knuckle curve that I used throughout my collegiate career. So I owe a lot to Don Sutton from a baseball side, but, I even still listen to him now from a broadcast side. But, I wouldn't listen to the radio a ton just because I didn't have much time. It was more TV and sitting there and watching Heat games with my dad and Braves games with my dad, and, different things like that. So, but I would always pay attention, try to get different traits from different guys that I still use today.
Refresh your vehicle and you're done with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. August is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're speaking with Jeff Cardozo on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. So, Jeff, talk about what it meant. I mean, obviously you got to play in the College World Series, but then you've been broadcasting a long time, the Gator baseball, but you go back and we finally win a national title. As a former player, I mean, that had to be a remarkable moment.
It was great because I think that year, Shane, 2017, there was not really a lot of expectations. It wasn't Sully's best team. We'd been so many times where you had all these studs and you're thinking you're going to win it, and it just didn't work out. But I think it just shows you how hard it is to win a national championship. So that opportunity comes and you win a couple of games and you've got guys. And, if it wasn't Wilkie, on that question you asked me, I'd probably say it was Brady Singer would be my next favorite. I just love the way he competed. And of course he was a part of that team and helping that team win. And, you remember going through it, and Mick and I had shared so many times in the broadcast booth where he'd some so close and just weren't able to pull it off. So when you win that first game against LSU, and then you can sort of sense that after that late inning rally that Florida had to go up several runs, thinking, holy cow, we're going to win this thing. Actually. And I just remember really like trying to soak it in and paying attention to Mick. And, Mick has this great call after it's done. And, I sit there and I put my arm around him and we're almost in tears together. So it was a really unique moment. And we had known that was actually going to be Mick's last time doing radio. He was going to get off doing radio. So it was that unique opportunity, wanting to win it for him too, because then he could get that national championship call in football and baseball and basketball, which obviously nobody gets to do. And that's how good Florida is. So there's been a few of those moments with Mick. I just, it's been fun really being around him and watching him. I remember having that same moment at LSU when we were there and we had the fourth down stop right there on the goal line. And, he's going nuts and we're all going nuts in the booth. And I just stick my arm around him and we kind of look at each other with a little bit of a hug and just to have that passion. But yeah, you got really teary-eyed and it was hard to hold back those tears, but then to get down to the field, interview the players, Sully, and just know how hard they've worked and how many things that Sully's had to go through and to get that moment, knowing it wasn't that best team. And, they finally just all put it together. So to be a part of that and be around it was certainly special.
Jeff, let's talk about McKeithen Stadium. It's pretty much a dirt pile now. Your thoughts on that? Obviously, you had some great memories there. But I can't imagine them tearing the swamp down. I don't know how I'd feel about that. Obviously, we needed a new ballpark, and it is phenomenal. Just your thoughts about McKeithen?
Yeah, I think that's where you have to go, because you look at all the other places throughout the SEC and look at LSU and South Carolina and Ole Miss, which, I'm sure you've been to. That's probably my favorite out of all of them, just the atmosphere.
More than Mississippi State?
Yeah, I like Ole Miss better than Mississippi State, although the New Yard's pretty legit too. So you can't complain on that. But it was needed. And I think more so for the fans, like you want to have on a Sunday afternoon when the series is on the line, you're playing LSU, you want a lot of people to be there. And now they can be because of that shade structure and having the field face the right way. But yeah, I think I'll miss some of the times and just all the blood, sweat, and tears from the MAC. And maybe if I wasn't able to broadcast from afterwards and I just have those McKeithen memories, I'd probably feel a little different, more sentimental toward the field. But I think I see it as I want it to be good for the fans. I want all these special things that the fans can show up and create these new memories and how good it's going to be for them. But yeah, I remember, all the Lopez stories, all the times that we're there getting yelled at after games and or celebrating after wins and just having the times in the locker room with the guys and just all the special moments that, you basically spent 4 years of your life in that locker room on that field and you're up at 6 o'clock in the morning running and doing things. So I just, luckily I was able to get there with my family. My birthday was in June. So my wife actually took me over with the kids, and she had Cindy Chambers, one of the photographers, take a bunch of pictures of the MAC before it got torn down. So I'll always have those memories there and the different things that happened. So a special place in my heart for sure.
So did you bring a shovel and take some dirt from the mound? What did you steal? Let us know what you took from McKeithen Stadium.
Yeah, well, I did finagle a couple of the chair backs. So that was good. So I'll always have those at the house. I was able to take a couple of things from inside the press box and from the radio booth. And then, certainly did that. I went down and took some dirt from the field. And well, actually, we were in Cooperstown a few years ago. We had the Little League trip, took Austin up there with the family, and that was a great memory. So they have this really cool, you could buy liquor in this baseball kind of mug. And I ended up obviously getting rid of that liquor and throwing some dirt in there. So I always have that to preserve that memory.
Yeah, very cool. So Jeff, tell us how you came about you pretty much do everything for the Gator Radio Network, from pregame shows for football. You're up in the booth with Mick and Lee during football. Then you do some basketball, you do some women's basketball, you probably do some volleyball. I mean, you do pretty much everything. How'd that come about?
Yeah, I think just being fortunate, honest with you. I learned a work ethic from Andy Lopez, my coach. And, I think his motto was always be on time and do things right. And, I think I just took that from the few opportunities I got early in my career. I ended up just hanging around the baseball press box after I knew my baseball days were over, and just happened to be one day when one of the guys wasn't able to be there. So I sat in, and they liked the way I analyzed the game and getting that perspective from a former player, and it just kind of worked up from there, and it was really special. And then got the opportunity to get in the O-Dome and do some of that PA stuff with volleyball and basketball, and then really I think just worked. And I think they understood my passion for Florida and my passion for everything that I get to do. And, I always tried to just make sure that I was around, just, doing different things. If they needed somebody to go out and, MC a pep rally or just be there for something, I, of course, always raised my hand and I wanted to be a part of that, because I knew that this place was really special to me. I wanted to be able to showcase this place, the University of Florida, and, at least be able to give back to the place that gave me so much. So that's really how it worked out. Just the right place, right time. And, was able to work really hard and get several opportunities. And, they would call me and say, hey, you want to do this? And I'm like, sure. You want to do this? Sure. And, I think just that grind and that work ethic and, being able to do things. And Shane, my personality, like I've never wanted to be that person that's hoity-toity or, hey, I've got to have this broadcaster voice, or I've got to do all these things. It was really about just goofing off. Like, I want to sit there and do a radio show like we're doing now. And, I'd be drinking a beer right now if it wasn't 8 o'clock in the morning. And, I want to have fun with it. I want to enjoy things. I want to bring out people's personalities. And, I think that's what I've always tried to do. And, I think that's at least why they've enjoyed me getting that opportunity to do some of the stuff. Like, of course, I'm going to talk about stats and I'm going to do things, but I think a lot of people don't necessarily care about a majority of that. They want stories, they want personalities, they want to hear about players. So I like really talking to players and getting some stuff out of them to be able to showcase that and just really allow Gator Nation to do stuff. Like on the Gator's own show, I want to get on the gymnastics court, and I want to try to stand on the balance beam, or I want to do a flip, or I want to go through some of that stuff and not just stand there and talk. Like I want to have fun with it, and I think that's what they've enjoyed, I guess, because they're letting me stick around and do it for more.
Yeah, you do a tremendous job, no doubt about it. So let's talk about also you run Ironwood Golf Course, which good golf course here in the Gainesville area, owned by the city. You've been doing that for a long time, right?
Yeah, long time, crazy, and that's what you see in the background now, just hanging out on the first hole. Yeah, and that again was just another opportunity. Back in the day when I was doing journalism stuff, I came out here and I actually did a story on Ironwood. And the head pro at the time, Bill, gave me the opportunity to come back. And I remember calling him up after I knew my playing days were over, and I said, hey, I need a summer job. Is there anything I can do? And I was a bartender, slinging around drinks and putting carts away in the evenings and just trying to work my way up or do something while I was going to do the broadcast side. And 18 years later, now I get to run the place and hang out. But I think, again, it goes back to that work ethic. It was, hey, anything that I could do, any late night party you needed me to work, any morning you needed me to be here at 5:30 to run some carts out for a tournament, I was willing to do it. And, I think just that work ethic was enabled me to get into the pro shop. And then a couple of years later and kind of on the back end of things and helping him out there. And then, to running it for about 8 years now. So it's been fun. I think, I've tried to treat out here the same way as I do the broadcast side. Again, you've been a golfer your whole life, and you walk into some of these country clubs where it's all hoity-toity, and that's the way it's going to be. But I know what we are. We're a public facility that caters to all of Gainesville, and I want to treat people that way. I want them to feel welcome. I want our staff as they get to know these guys and gals as they come in. Like by the third time when they walk through that door, wave at them, say, "Hey, Shane, what's up? How you doing today?" And just use that name and use that mindset. And, we've been able to do a lot of improvements out here over the years. And, you look over there and there's the driving range. We got some lights on it now. We've got a shade structure on it now to hit balls. And, we're the home to many of the different high schools. And I love seeing the kids out here. And, obviously I love all the charity tournaments. We do about 40 of those a year. And I try to donate my time and, the different things that I can access as much as I can to help out charities throughout Gainesville. It's my home. I'm enthralled in here now, and I really enjoy being a part of this community.
Yep, you're a hardworking man, no doubt about it. Not only do you do Gator Radio Network stuff, you do Ironwood Golf Course. You have your own show, The Tailgate, been going on for a long time, from 4 to 6 on WRUF with Pat Dooley. How long you gonna keep doing it?
Yeah, as long as I can keep slapping Dooley around and having some fun with him. It's been good. Obviously, Dooley's got a lot of knowledge, and heck, I've known Pat for a really long time, and I even joked to him, and I've got the story in my office when he was covering me when I was playing baseball, and my last baseball game ever was one I'll never forget. We went to Baylor, and it was a regional, and they were the 1 seed, we were the 2 seed, and we're playing them in an elimination game, and I ended up throwing a complete game to knock Baylor out, and then we ended up being 1 game shy of going to the College World Series again. So I missed out that opportunity for a second time. But, Dooley wrote a story out there, and he called me a wacko in Waco. And that was the headline. But that's what I was. It was that personality. And, I had fun with the guys, and I had fun with them and media members and everybody else. And, I try to do that with the show. And Pat and I have a really good time trying to do that. And, of course, this has been a tough time during all the COVID stuff, but it's been great getting guys on and reliving stories and, getting those opportunities to see how many other people really have that same mindset that I do, how much they love Florida, how much they owe to what Florida and this university has given to them that's propelled them to do great things for the rest of their lives. So it's been cool to see that side of it as well.
So you mentioned earlier you went to Cooperstown with your son. You've coached your son. I think you still do some travel ball. Let's be honest. How many times you've been thrown out of a game?
I'll throw out that competitiveness every now and then, but that's only because umpires are morons, right? Like, I don't do anything wrong. Like, I just want them to be consistent. I think that's where my frustration is. So if we're going to be honest, I got tossed twice already this summer. So, but it was, but no, it's good. It's fun. It's cool to, give back and be able to teach some of these kids the things that I learned. It's just, it's so different now, Shane. I think and, we didn't have travel ball back growing up. And now we went out, even with all the COVID stuff, we played 41 games this summer. And we traveled all over the state. And we went to Alabama. And there's 104 teams in that tournament. And we did it safely. We did it well. No, there was no issues. And I think we had a really good time. And it was a great set of parents and families. And I think just being able to be around different families and being there alongside, getting to Coach Austin, just try to teach him to be competitive. And, he just turned 14 last week. So you teach him now to try to be competitive and go back to that story about David Ross with me. Like, if I would have learned that, maybe I would have even been better in high school or better in different things that I did. So you try to teach all that kids out and make them understand that stepping over that white line, if this is what you want to do for a really long time, then you got to be competitive and you've got to be able to go out and try to do that the best you can. So it's fun for sure. And, I'm going to still have that competitiveness in me, and I'm sure there'll be a few more times that I'll get thrown out too.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time this morning, my man, joining the program. Make sure you tune in 4 to 6, Monday through Friday, The Tailgate with Jeff Cardozo and Pat Dooley on WRUF. Jeff, be safe, my friend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks talking to you, Shane. Great job.
That's Jeff Cardozo. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. When we come back, we'll be joined by our good buddy Brent Beaird, talking college football. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakau Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe, MB Listings, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Cornerstone Financial Group, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Master, 84 Lumber, and Gainesville Neon and Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click the advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Really want to thank Jeff Cardozo joining us, talking a little Gator baseball. But now we're going to go to, in just a second, at Center State Bank, we put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. We're now going to go back to the Titan Tomorrow hotline, and we're joined by our good friend and college football analyst, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, I'm doing okay. Good to be with you always. It seems like we have had a month in the last 2 days, and it's just the middle of the week, right?
I tell you, Brent, I feel exhausted today from what all transpired yesterday. I had trouble sleeping last night. I'm not going to lie to you. I just feel horrible. College athletes and the coaches. Brent, before we jump into this, well, let's just go ahead and jump into it. Yesterday, if you've been living under a rock and you're not aware of it, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have canceled football, and they say that they want to try to play in the spring. That's garbage. They're not playing in the spring, folks.
No, it's not. The spring is really a no-go in a lot of ways. They've talked about having abbreviated seasons, maybe play 6 games, but how in the world are you going to be able to do that and then play in the fall? I mean, you've got off. In other words, there really would be no break for those players. I'm sure the rosters would be probably dramatically different, but that's just the honest truth at this point, due to weather, due to scheduling. The spring's not going to work, and they basically just said that in order to try to pacify their fan base and their coaches and players, which they fail miserably at doing.
No doubt about it. So let's talk about the Big Ten here, Brent. And I haven't really heard anybody in the national media ask this question. So what's the Big Ten's commissioner's name? Last name is Warren.
Yeah, Kevin Warren.
Kevin Warren. Okay. He comes out and states that the Big Ten doctors say it's not safe for the kids to participate in sports this year. Okay. My question is, do the Big Ten have these special type doctors that the other conferences don't have? Because I'm pretty sure the medical experts in the SEC and the ACC have pretty much said it's okay for them to play. But my point is, Kevin Warren sits here and says it's not safe for you to play. However, he has a son that plays tight end at Mississippi State University.
Correct.
His kid has not opted out to play. You would think if it was that dangerous and your medical expert told you it is not safe to play, wouldn't you be sitting there saying, my son needs to opt out?
Well, this is a lot of what happened with the Big Ten. Shane, they basically, and the Pac-12 did the same thing. They basically decided months ago that they were not going to play, and they wanted to be the first ones to be able to pull the plug. They thought that they would have everyone else come join them after they got their marbles and decided to go home. Instead, what happened is the pressure that they thought would go onto the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 actually went on them, and it really should have. They will use the excuse of COVID, and there's no doubt that it was some of it. But what happened here, the Big 12, the Big Ten president, Shane, were as frightened of liability, and also, I'm going to put it like this, a quasi-labor union by players as they were COVID. They'll never admit that, but that's a lot of what happened here. They had tremendously poor leadership in their commissioner, who was a rookie in his first year. I'm convinced if Jim Delaney, remember that name, the longtime Big Ten commissioner, would have been in power, that he would have been able to sit down with them and been able to work something out and hold this off. Well, the thing the Big Ten and the Pac-12 both should have done yesterday was they should have voted and they should have said, look, we're going to postpone the season until the mid-September or the end of September, and be more uniformed with some of these other conferences, and that will give us time to figure out what's going on, and maybe things will get better at that point. So the Big Ten made their decision. The Pac-12, which is basically the Big Ten's lapdog, made their decision an hour later. I was told last night the Pac-12 had made their decision 2 months ago and already had a press release made. They just had to change the wording of it. So, but there's a lot of pressure, a lot of angst, and they've got some absolutely furious fan bases, players and coaches that they're going to have to deal with over the next few months.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with everything you said, and it just blows my mind how the leader of a conference who comes out and says it's not safe to play football, whether that's the reason or not, and then here's your own son who is still on the team suiting up for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. It blows my mind. So, as you mentioned, let's talk about the Nebraska Cornhuskers, Brent. Looks like, if they go play elsewhere, I don't know all the ways that's going to happen, but I've heard, read where the Big Ten said they would no longer be welcomed in the Big Ten. I don't think Nebraska really cares. They just want to play football.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I think their fan base right now will be glad to go back to the Big 12. Here's the problem with Nebraska and the other Big Ten teams is, and I don't want to play lawyer here, but you've got rights fees that are owned by the Big Ten Network, the ESPN, and Fox, and you've just got a maze of legalese here that they would have to work through in order for that to happen. I mean, their conference would have to give them some kind of a waiver or something of that issue, and they're just not going to be able to do that, and they're not willing to do that. But I can certainly appreciate what their feeling is and how mad that they are at this point. I mean, look, even after the decision yesterday, Michigan practiced, and this may not happen, but my understanding is Nebraska is going to practice today in pads. So I appreciate their effort and what they're saying. This is no doubt very embarrassing for Scott Frost in that, but see. The amazing thing to me about this with the Big Ten is how your coaches Day at Ohio State, Harbaugh at Michigan, Frost in Nebraska were very clear that they wanted to play and how important it was for them, from the players, from the fans. The Big Ten Network a week ago today had a 2.5-hour special on the schedule that they were going to play this year. So obviously all that was just a hoax and a smoke screen is what it amounts to. But I think Nebraska will say a lot, but they're just going to be limited if they can do anything at all.
You mentioned Michigan practice. You know, the teams can still practice, I don't know, 20 hours, whatever it is.
Right.
How in the world can you keep kids focused on practice? I mean, listen, I have a kid on the team here, and they haven't even started their quote practices, but they've had their walkthroughs, their workouts, and all that stuff.
Right.
And they've been frustrated because the uncertainty whether they're going to play or not. Now, obviously, we think the SEC is going to move ahead, but I mean, doing all these walkthroughs and these practices, it just for nothing, basically. You're looking maybe a year away from playing football. I mean, what's going to happen to these athletes at Michigan, Ohio State? You think they're going to transfer? You think they're going to find a way to get – I don't even know if the NFL has a supplemental draft anymore. I don't really follow that. But what are the players going to do?
Well, I think that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are in a situation to where they've got to be transparent enough to allow these kids to transfer. Now, we don't have anything concrete on that yet, but believe me, that will be discussed. And I can tell you this, you and I both know that these kids, say Justin Fields, how many phone calls do you think he's got in the last 24 hours from coaches of other schools, or at least someone being able to reach out to them? Now, the other thing that's going on here is going to be the recruiting ramifications. And I know you don't make a decision like this based on recruiting, but I'm telling you, if the SEC, ACC, and the Big 12 are able to come up with any kind of a season, even if it's half a season, for them just to be able to tell these recruits that, look, football is something that is important, we're doing it, and we're going to keep you safe at the same time. Can you imagine the recruiting advantage over the next several months, Shane, that the conferences who are going to play or make the best attempt to play are going to have over the Big Ten and the Pac-12?
No doubt. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. We're speaking with Brent Beaird here on the Titan MRI Hotline. You can follow Brent on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Brent, so let's talk about the SEC. They're digging their feet in. Here's what I will tell, and I said this on the Buddy Martin show last night, Brent. I have a kid on the team.
Right.
And people don't understand athletes are treated different than the regular student body. Mm-hmm. I think everybody agrees with that. People complained about it, whatever you want to do. With them being part of a team, they're really not on campus except for their football-related activities because everybody doesn't live together like they used to. They're in the safest environment they'll ever be in their entire life.
Correct.
From nutrition, working out, medical care, you can't find a safer place for a person than being a collegiate athlete and a football player at a major university. So I firmly believe the SEC is going to be playing football this year. Do you think they stick with it? And do you think the ACC and Big 12 hang in there with us?
Well, the good thing is the Big 12 decided last night that they wanted to move ahead. Now, obviously, your big players there are going to be Oklahoma and Texas. This is when Texas needs to flex its muscle. Texas believes that it owns the Big 12. On a bad day, so they at this point that conference needs their leadership. Now they've been a little bit on the fence, but fortunately the presidents decided to move forward at this point. And the same thing with the ACC. The good thing for the ACC, John Swofford and Greg Sankey came out immediately with statements after the announcements for the Big Ten and the Pac-12 that they were moving ahead. And I think the thing that you said is quite accurate. It's the safest place for these players to be. They've got the medical care, the nutrition, the training, and look, they are going through all the necessary protocol that they need to do. One of the things I've seen this morning, which I think is very important, is one of the reasons why the Pac-12 and the Big Ten said that they're closing down is because of the COVID, the long-range damage that it could do to the heart. Well, I mean, they've got cardiologists and the ability to look at the heart in these SEC schools too. My understanding is they have been doing that, and they have been tracking that situation. So, and again, I think we need to be clear about this. This doesn't mean necessarily, I hope it does, and I think it will, that the SEC, ACC, and the Big 12 are going to have a season. But I think at least what they're going to do is they're going to do all they can to give their players and coaches and medical personnel a chance to have a season. Look, they may get into the season, Shane, and after 3 or 4 games just find out, look, we can't do this, but at least they're not going to be quitting early like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 did. So, and I think what people need to understand, camp basically begins next week in the SEC, so they're certainly going to be around more than they were, and at this point, I salute Greg Sankey, who's been one of the few adults in the room as far as the conference commissioners have been over the last few days. I think he's done and said all the right things. Hopefully that will continue, that they will continue to monitor it. And look, people who say, and the national media is going to do this, well, the Big Ten and the Pac-12, that they care about people and they care about people's lives. Well, these other 3 conferences do too. And they've got medical personnel and they're monitoring this as well as they can do it. And they've got pretty smart people on these campuses too who are able to do this. So at this point, the 3 remaining conferences and obviously some of the non-Power 5 or continue to go through the protocol, doing the right things, and I think doing the best job that they can do.
Yeah. And, you know, I can vouch for the SEC being ahead of the curve when it comes to, you mentioned about the cardiology portion of this thing. They've been ahead of the curve. The entire SEC has in that regards. The group of 5, there's a few conferences that are still hanging in there. You got the American, the Sun Belt, Conference USA, which I salute them. I hope they play. But what are you hearing from that group of 5?
They will have meetings this week. I believe Conference USA meets today. The Sun Belt and the AAC have said that they're full go at this point. Now, look, some of these non-Power 5s are even trying to play 12 games, which would be incredible to be able to see that. So hopefully that will continue. But again, the Conference USA, their presidents are going to meet. And look, here's what's important about that. As long as they see some configuration of the Power 5 continuing on, they probably will too. Now, do they have the money and the medical situation that the SEC does? I doubt it. We may be very surprised what they've got, though, and I think they will continue to go forward at this point, and they're going to have some pretty flexible scheduling, I think, as it goes along. But a tip of the cap to those group too, right, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, heck, they're not giving up on their kids. Let's talk a little football, Brent, before we let you go here. Tua's little brother, who was the quarterback at Alabama, transfers to Maryland, gets a waiver, is immediately eligible to play. However, he's in the Big Ten. It doesn't matter. But how, correct me if I'm wrong, Joey Gatewood, is he still waiting to be eligible to play?
Yeah, he is. Look, the waiver situation is one of the crazier things that we've seen in quite a while. Now, if we were having a normal year, I think this waiver situation would have already happened. See, the waiver, as much criticism as they get, the NCAA, to their credit, basically said, we think this waiver thing is going to go. We're going to give everybody one free pass, as they put it. We're going to give everyone one mulligan. And then afterwards, when some of this COVID stuff calms down, we'll get back to it. Now, that's going to pass. It's just a matter of time. But in the interim, the problem is guys like Gatewood are still kind of just twisting around, waiting to hear something. Hopefully that's going to happen, but you can't blame these kids at all, can you, Shane, for some of the ones who've been, unfortunately, that have been delayed. You see other ones who are immediately eligible, and you wonder what in the world is going on. And look, in fairness, there may be some issues there that we don't know about at this point, but your point is well taken. Unfortunately, he and others are still waiting.
Yep, Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com. A few more minutes here with Brent Beaird on the Titan MR hotline. Brent, I think what's overshadowed with all these leagues canceling is the SEC came out with their schedule. Talk briefly about winners and losers. Well, obviously we all know who the losers are. Poor Missouri and poor Arkansas.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Arkansas has got a really ridiculous schedule, to say the least, now with Georgia and Florida added to it, and Missouri, obviously, with Alabama and LSU. I think a lot of people thought that Florida and Alabama might play. I didn't think they would, Shane, because the league, to their credit, said that they were going to try to balance the strength of the schedules. And with the schedule, Florida's already playing, and then Alabama was playing Georgia. I thought they may take a real look at that and go in another direction, which they did. Now, Bama is going to be, as we mentioned, they're going to Missouri. They're also playing Kentucky. And look, Kentucky is no pushover. Mark Stoops has done a tremendous job at Kentucky, and we've heard from one of the Kentucky beat writers, this may be the deepest Kentucky team ever. I don't mean in 10 years, I mean ever. So the point is they are going to be good. I know Auburn's complained a little bit about adding Tennessee and at South Carolina, but, I mean, South Carolina continues to struggle. Yes, I know they upset Georgia at home, but then they lost like 5 of the next 6, and then Tennessee's still rebuilding at this point. So I think, frankly, the league did a pretty good job of trying to balance this as best they could. Did some of the upper echelon get a little bit of a break? Yeah, you could certainly argue that, but I think overall they did okay.
Yeah, I think so. Brent, the Gators have done some good things here recently in recruiting.
They've had a tremendous week. Jason Marshall, the 5-star cornerback, coming in from South Florida, is a tremendous pickup for them, as is Corey Collier, 6'2", 170, Miami native. And look, I'm sure you picked up on this like I did. The important thing is you've got to keep that South Florida pipeline going, don't you, Shane? And these are 2 guys who got ties to that area, and that's going to pay off for Florida as they rebuild that secondary.
Yep, Brent, time has flown by, my man. We got so much to talk about. We didn't get to everything, but I'm sure there'll be more breaking news here in the next few days, and we look forward to having you on next week sometime, talking about this crazy college football. Stay safe up there in Jax, my man, and we'll talk to you soon.
Look forward to it, Shane. It's minute by minute, hour by hour, is it not? But we'll try to stay on top of it and look forward to being on with you soon.
Yes, sir. That's Brent Beaird. You can follow him on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Does a tremendous job keeping us up to date what's going on in the college football world. Folks, make sure you follow us and like us on Facebook Live. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts as well. Tomorrow's show, make sure you tune in. We're going to have Gator great wide receiver Jabbar Gaffney join the program along with our media guest, Cassidy Hill from Gator Bait Media. Today's show's wrap brought to you by Wrap Spot. Make sure you stay safe out there, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.